And then you can use what was referred to as local wisdom. What we used heavily for local wisdom last year was information that came from Interlink. And so Interlink provides us really good additional LMI information, and Candy Slocum is amazing in supporting a lot of what we do in our districts. Because I think rather than a whole bunch of people sending an email and everybody coming up with a different set of course sequences, or working by themselves to come up with which occupations would you want to use for that, I think we can combine some of that effort. We still will need to send those emails in, but I have set up a link and to a document that I want to go ahead and let you fill in if you are interested in doing this. That way I can be supporting you and I can connect you to other people that want to work on this with you. This is what we did last year. We put together kind of a coalition of people that were interested in that work, kind of divided up the work, because if this is the start of the work, there will be more work that comes from this. If when you give in the intent, they say, go ahead and you can start working on doing that. What I would tell you that I recommend you do before you even consider it is to go ahead and look at the other regional programs of study that exist. Because if there's one that exists for another area, they're going to expect that your courses are going to align with the one that they've already approved. So aviation flight is already here. So you're going to want to look and see what course progression did they have on that. We did last year when we submitted, we wanted more courses listed than on the approval than what they gave us. And they said no, that it was going to have to be a pretty straightforward, trimmed down way to get there. And so if you look at, let's look at the drone document that we created. So you'll see there's not nearly as many courses listed here as if you went to some of those statewide programs of study where you saw, sometimes dozen courses or more that showed there. And they let us kind of do two ways, because some of our districts are Project Lead the Way districts and other districts were not Project Lead the Way. So they did let us do multiple courses that were Project Lead the Way and that were not. And so if you go to the back, you'll see them, you can see the list of the approved courses to get there and the PEMS codes that they used. If you look at cosmetology, and this one was pretty widely accepted for a lot of regions. It had a few more on the introductory courses, but again, then it streamlined down to, very minimal courses that you could choose, which looks a lot different than on some of those statewide programs of study. This entire page plus another page would have the courses listed that were course options for you. And they did that with purpose. They aren't going to do that. One of the things that they had let us know last year was if you were looking at applying, if you were looking at one of the statewide programs of study and you wanted to use that with just like one or two courses different that they chose to not put on it, and that's what you're going to try to submit, they're not going to approve it. It has to be something that's unique. It can't be one of theirs slightly tweaked to make it what you want within your district. And so looking at these others as a sample to kind of give you an idea of how they were approved, and they do have that document that kind of combines them all. Like you see, cosmetology was approved for a majority of the 20 regions, but others were, only one place. Something like the maritime, we would be hard pressed here in the Metroplex to get the data to meet those three criteria, but down on the coast they were. And so they were able to get that approved. So if you are considering working on this, I meant to have this already saved to send to you. I'm going to be in a little bit when somebody else is presenting, I'm going to go and pull it, and I'm going to put that a link to be able to complete this form in the chat so that you can have access to it. I will also post a link to it underneath today's presentation on the website, so that if you aren't ready to do that right now, but you want to get back to it in the days to come, you can do that. And then we can kind of collaboratively look at seeing. I also gave, if you complete this form, you will have access to the spreadsheet to see who else puts in the information that you showed your interest in, so that you will all have that same knowledge. I want to take a minute and ask, does anybody have any questions on the regional programs of study before we move on? All right. Well, it looks like, Aaron, I'm a little ahead of schedule, so I'm hoping that you are good with that, that you're good to go. I see that there may be questions in the chat.
We're ready.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
ready.
And so I have Aaron and Aaron, and this ended up kind of being, so some of you may have heard a little bit about this if you were on a call with the Tarrant County workforce this week. But they are with Advanced Technology Consultants, and they're going to talk to you a little bit about Industry 4.0 and NC3, and provide you a little bit more information, because it was something that I thought would be valuable for you, because I have a lot of people that have started talking about looking at doing manufacturing and mechatronics and things like that, tied to either programs they already have that exist or in addition to what they're offering. So I'm going to mute and let you gentlemen have it.
Awesome. Lisa, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay. Yeah, I just want to, we're going to be very mindful of your time, not take a long time. So I'm just going to introduce who we are, and then Aaron's going to take it from there. So my name's Aaron Paul. As far as I know, I'm not related to Monica Paul, but hi, Monica, good last name. So ATC, Advanced Technologies Consultants, we're the nation's leader in technology training systems, so equipment and curriculum. We were founded in 1964 by John Close, and then his son took over for his father in 1989. So Tom Close is our current president. I started with ATC in 2008. I'm the regional vice president for ATC. So been with them a little over 12 years. And one of my good friends from our church, a few years ago, I started talking to him. I said, I really think you would like this job. And then finally convinced him in August of last year. Aaron Bloss joined us and has been a great addition to our team. Aaron helps me. He covers kind of the west donut, the west half of the donut, and North Oklahoma, all of North Texas and Oklahoma west of 35. So Aaron's been a great addition, and part of today is, Aaron and I have gone through training on NC3, and Aaron's done a fantastic job. And so I said, Aaron, I think you can handle this presentation, and if anything, this will be a great way to just review how well you do. So this is in part a review for Aaron Bloss today. But Aaron, if you would just take it from there, talk to us about NC3, Industry 4.0. If anybody has any questions, I don't know if we'll have time for that here, but we would love to follow up offline if you have any questions and would like further information, want us to send you any of the slides, anything that we talk about today, we'd be happy to. So thank you for your time. Aaron, take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, we are kind of becoming known as the Aarons now around Texas, so in Oklahoma. So just call Aaron out and you'll get one of us. So
that's right.
And it's good
Aaron.
to see some of you. Yeah, that's right. And it's good to see some of you again. I know I've met with many of you previously, so it's good to see you. Today, we're just going to talk about Industry 4.0, and just want to give you a very brief overview of the subject. I mean, Aaron, Paul, and I went through a couple of days of training just to kind of gather, the depth of this topic. So we just want to pique your interest. We'd love to, talk further about it if this is something that you have more questions on. Let's talk about Festo and NC3. We'll talk more about NC3 a little bit later, but who is Festo? They are one of the world's largest producers of automation equipment for manufacturing and industry. They are a $4.5 billion a year company. And many of the products we use today are probably produced with Festo components or products in industry. They created Festo Didactic to help train workforce for the equipment they produce. So the didactic side is who we work with directly to help, build programs that work with actually industry relevant machines. So we'll get, that's a little bit about Festo.
Hey,
and
Aaron,
yeah, go ahead.
are you showing us a screen right now? I see a black
Oh, you
screen.
don't see it?
Yeah,
You don't see it. Okay.
that's
Step
okay.
out of that
Technology, I guess
mode.
everybody's experience. There
Can you
you
see
go.
that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we just keep it on there.
So we were
Can
starting
you go,
here. This is,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
back to that company slide, because that's what you were just talking about. Some of the big companies in the Metroplex that are customers
right.
of Festo in industry. And I think that's a good, just a quick, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so we were just talking about, like, here's some of the companies just in Texas that, are producing stuff for us every day. There's equipment in here that is Festo. There is a list too long to put in here for our state alone, let alone our country. And so we are talking about very relevant topics here when Festo is a part of this collaboration that is moving us into this fourth industrial revolution. So let's talk about that fourth industrial revolution. Let's get a running start at it. I'll be very brief about this stuff though. Industry 1.0, that was really, it was a technical invention with the steam engine and electric motors. It really increased productivity and efficiency in ways that had never been possible at that point. That was, it could have started as early as the late 1700s. Most likely it was in the mid to later 1800s. Industry 2.0, we know this primarily through Henry Ford and his production line. And it wasn't really a new invention as in a technical invention. It was a reorganization of the components that were already in use that day. And so it optimized, it increased efficiency. And then moving forward to Industry 3.0, that was around 1960, late 60s, where the introduction of robotics and programmable logic controllers, or PLCs. Many of you in CTE probably know a little bit about it, but if you don't, the easiest way for me to think about it is think about stoplights. They're run by PLCs. It's really automation that is created with industrial computers.
And
That's
the
the
other
best way to think about it.
That
Yeah, go ahead.
amazed me when I found out, and I won't interrupt you too much, Aaron, but 1969 is when the first industrial robot was used in industry. So many of us are talking about innovative programs, and we're going to start putting in robots. They've been around since 1969. So it's not, now if anybody's been around since 1969, I'm not saying that you're old. I'm just saying that's not necessarily new. The robots have been around for a while.
That's right. That's good. That's good. Industry 4.0 is, again, it's not necessarily a new technical invention. It's really a reorganization of what's currently out there. And really, the catchphrase that really makes it stick is thinking of it as the batch size of one. So you go back to Henry Ford's production line. The phrase that always makes me laugh is, you can have any color car you want as long as it's black. Back then, it is a production line that you produce one thing and you do a big run of it. Industry 4.0, with the technology and the advancements in communication with cyber physical equipment, technology, and big data, you can do what's called a batch size of one. So Aaron, you won't be able to see your shoes right now. I don't even think you have them with you, but he recently, or last year, he bought a pair of shoes from iTailor.com, and he created his own custom ATC colored shoes. They're a sight to behold. He had them, he customized them to his foot size, and he ordered them, and they were shipped within a week. He had his own custom shoes, and so he had a batch size of one. They didn't have to make a run of 1,000 of those, which only 1 or 2 of those would have been sold, which a huge waste of material, energy, time. And that is what has happened with a lot of current industry, is that there's stories of a company that produces T-shirts, and they have so many extra that they ship them back to like coal plants to burn for more energy because it was such a big waste. This is one of those efficiencies that you're getting out of Industry 4.0. It's creating whole new business models. So to really succinctly try and put a tack on this here, it represents a fundamental shift taking place in production and manufacturing industries. It's the merging of the physical world and the cyber world into what is now a digital manufacturing. Includes topics like AR and VR. It includes Internet of Things and the industrial Internet of Things. There's a lot that could go into each of these. I've got a binder here that shows it's kind of many parts to a slices to a pie. It is many things that make up Industry 4.0. And so anyways, that's kind of the topic. Let's talk about a little bit more about what the future holds for the next generational workforce. And really, some of this is already happening now. Like if you look at the Gigafactory made by Tesla, they already are using many of these Industry 4.0 machines, which are coming to the Austin area, by the way. The plant that's going in for Black & Decker around Fort Worth, they have already said they're using advanced manufacturing, which is Industry 4.0. So our next generation workforce is needing to know how to work on these processes and machines. And the good news is there isn't necessarily a 4-year degree they need to get in order to do this either. So this is where NC3 comes into play. So just real quick, this is an actual manufacturing line that you're seeing in Germany. It's at Festo's plant. It's actually producing the parts that make more of those same components. And you notice it does not have the 3Ds. It's not dark, dirty, dangerous, or dull. There is a lot going on there. You could eat off that floor. And so the workforce of tomorrow doesn't have to worry about those 4Ds. They have to be technically challenged. They're going to be technically challenged. They need to be able to do computer codes. They need to be able to have soft skills, people skills, critical analytic thinking skills. There's a lot that's going into this next generational workforce.
And I will say just a real quick, while you're going to that next slide, I went to Mary Kay, their new plant there in Louisville. I went to the old one in Dallas as well, but the one in Louisville, talked to the training manager, and he let me know that they're not yet Industry 4.0, but that's where they're heading. And so I've heard that from many companies. If you ask them, hey, are you Industry 4.0 right now? They're not, but they're headed that way. Industry 4.0 is kind of this ideal state. And many companies I talked to, Raytheon, somebody from there at an advisory committee on Friday, they're heading towards Industry 4.0. So industry's heading that way right now. And as we know, it's a process in education to plan for this. So that's why we want to introduce this to you now, because by the time we get these programs out, it's going to be full swing in industry.
A number of people on this call, we met with Peterbilt at their factory in Denton last year, and it was amazing how it runs. They start to finish and custom orders, because their trucks are all custom, and it all runs off of 4.0.
That's right. That's a great example. These are great. These are jobs that are emerging right now. So let's talk about NC3. I don't really have a true NC3 slide. Basically, I'll tell you about them. NC3 is the National Coalition of Certifications. It was started by several community college presidents. They wanted to have industry relevant certifications. They're a third party, they're a nonprofit. Unlike other certifications that you can find, they're actually created by the people who are creating the equipment and curriculum to sell. This is a true industry recognized certification program. There are 3M is one of them, Festo obviously, 3M, Lincoln Electric, Train, which is HVAC. What are others? Snap-on, there's several others. And you can look at nc3.net to look at more about that. But what they're doing specifically for Industry 4.0 is created a program with Festo, and it's flexible and it's specialized. So what it means is, and I'll show you on this next slide, as people advance in their skills, they can become Industry 4.0 certified. It doesn't mean they have to know all of it, but they can pick and choose what specialties they'd like to do, they go into. So if I show you this slide, these are the pathways. The bottom row is level 1, obviously middle's 2, and top is 3. And all of them are working toward that third level, which is Industry 4.0 certified. Now, each one of these represents a segment that someone could get certified in.
So
They can
emphasize
certify. Go ahead.
each square is a standalone certificate, and again, this program can be horizontally or vertically stackable. So just like Aaron said, a student could go through and build all 6 of those standalone certificates on level 1 together to have 6 certificates as well as a level 1 certification.
That's right. And so you can see there's a lot here. In fact, I'd be happy to give you this slide if you want to see it later to look at it. And there's a lot that goes into this, each one of these. The good news is with NC3, students don't have to pay, or the school doesn't have to pay necessarily anything to get that student certified.
Can you
free.
say that one more time? It's so encouraging.
Free.
Say that
It's
one more
free.
time. Okay.
The cost would come in with each one of these segments, each one of those squares. The instructor will need to be certified to train it. So it is a train the trainer event. Normally we would send them to a place to get certified, and the cost of the training is usually just hundreds of dollars. It's not exorbitant. Then that's the cost to get there. With COVID, they are offering a discount, plus they are able to do it remote, and they have those scheduled throughout the year. So that would be the only cost associated with it. There's more detail about becoming a certification center and some of the things that you get as a school becomes a certification center. I won't go into all those details right now, but just this is here to pique your interest. So, and then some of the career opportunity, I just wanted to highlight that if you're a level 1, that's just, you don't necessarily even have to have a 2-year degree to get this. This is certification. There are jobs out there waiting for each level that could start right away.
And that's again a starting salary. We've talked to, I keep interrupting. We talked to many, I'm on some advisory boards and we talk to these companies regularly. And I'm always asking, it's one thing for NC3 or Festo to tell us, these are the jobs, these are, they could promise us things, but I'm asking these companies, and these are real. Actually, that 40,000 is a low number. And again, notice it's starting. Many of these companies will take a student even out of high school with the right, skill set, with the right, as far as like professionalism, they show up on time, they're well dressed, and they have that skill set. Many of these companies will hire them right out of high school, and then will pay for their continued education. And many of these students in a matter of 2 years have doubled their starting salary, and are able to really set up a nice career without that years and years of student debt.
Yeah, that's right. And the workforce that is, let me just read this number here. There's going to be a skills gap here in the coming years. If it's already kind of happening right now. There is going to be 4.6 million manufacturing jobs. They're likely to be needed here between now and 2028. And so there is going to be a huge push for this. And we work for trying to build programs that create these pipelines and these paths for students to take, because it's going to be needed. And I like the idea that someone like me who struggled in school would have loved this kind of career path option, not needing a 4-year degree. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but for alternative career paths. And so we love to tell people about what's coming, because it deals with really cool technology with robotics. You're producing things. You get to have a job and not have a significant amount of debt right out of school. So a lot of plus and positives for this career path that we're trying to inform people about. And yeah, that's it. That's what we wanted to share with you all. Love to talk more about Industry 4.0 with you all at some other point, answer questions, and NC3, and see how we can help you guys. Right. Thanks.
we were able to get started with them a little bit earlier than planned on the schedule. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or if somebody needs to open up and wants to ask questions, we have about 5 minutes that we can do that with. And so I want to give you that opportunity if you do have questions. I'm not seeing anything come in the chat. And Aaron, if you want to go ahead and unshare your screen so that
Sure.
I'll be able to take back control.
Sure.
That lets me see faces, so I can maybe see if somebody looks like they were getting ready to have questions. I will say not all of these are on the current list for IBCs, but they are certainly valuable to students. And since there's not a cost, you don't have to worry about, do I get to use them for IBC reimbursement? We always want to be thinking about what's best for our students, not just what counts for A through F accountability. But I also plan on sharing this information with Ryan Merritt and his crew in hopes that, because they did say in the future they would be looking at adding more to the IBC list. They said they would not be doing that this fall, as they had originally mentioned they might, but they are not, but they will be in the future adding more. So they may be something that, that since they are definitely would probably meet those different criteria as far as leading to high wage jobs and multiple entry and exit points and valued by industry, which was one of the big things that made an IBC be approved, was that it had to be industry recognized credentials. So I do plan on putting these gentlemen in touch with the right people so that they can kind of start those conversations and see about getting those added in the future.
Lisa, if I could, one last thing.
Yes.
We also, I know Aaron Bloss will do this. I'll do this as well. Sometimes we come together and do this, but we're happy to come out and help. We have a demo robot. We have some equipment that we can bring out and do presentations to students to kind of just make students aware of the type of jobs and careers that are out there. Obviously we sell equipment. That's how we make our money, but we really, we believe in this. What I like to tell people is, we sell career opportunities for students that didn't think that they could get those careers. And so part of that is not just the training equipment. Part of that is coming out and showing, almost like a show and tell, bring the robots, let students come and program them and things like that. So we're happy to do that if that would be helpful.
I'll also add, also working with your counselors and advisors as well to help talk to them and help them understand the opportunities, so as they talk to students, to pique their interest as well.
And I would also think that, it'd be something you could do remotely right now, because a lot of districts have part of their kids in-house, part of them are out. It might be something that you guys could be, sharing remotely and being able to get to your districts without even having to travel at this time. So, but certainly getting show and tell when you get to bring some cool equipment in is definitely piques the kids' interest a whole lot more. If you've never had an opportunity to go to one of these manufacturing facilities and to see what this is like, because it is not the manufacturing of old. It is not what you maybe would think it looks like. And people, I think they hear about robots replacing our people, and we know in CTE, it just changes the work. Our students, somebody still has to build these robots. And a robot isn't necessarily, it's not what something on the Jetsons look like that, rolls up and carries on a conversation. It's an arm that does a task, a repetitive task that in the past caused damage on a human who did that same repetitive task. However, somebody still has to manage that program. Somebody has to, program it, update it when there's changes. The in time, it was amazing for me to learn how the order comes in and start to finish. They don't keep their supplies on order. I mean, the supplies are being delivered to these factories within the hour of when they need to use them to add to a piece of a large equipment. And so this is also those suppliers that are doing the work for the parts that come in for the final assembly. and the logistics that goes in with that. And so certainly some of you have started logistics programs. The amount of logistics that goes in and ties this all together is amazing. And how, you know, if somebody got one piece of that wrong, how it would bring things to a screeching halt, how important it is that the exact piece they need show up at the exact time they need it in order to use it and keep things moving. But it is pretty amazing. So if you have an opportunity to go to, and they gave you a sample list of some of those companies here that are local, I highly recommend taking an opportunity to do that. Thank you, Aaron and Aaron.
I'd be happy to share that a more full list of those companies if anyone wants it to.
And oops, I went to let somebody in and I think I maybe just muted somebody. Sorry. But we appreciate very much you sharing today. And they did share their PowerPoint with me. Is it okay for me to share that out after the fact with our people? So I will add that to the materials so that you can get back to it. In a minute, I'm going to put back up on my screen. I have Aaron Bloss's contact information, his cell phone and his email address, and I'm about to put that on the screen so that if you want to capture that, or also it'll be in the PowerPoint. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for taking some time today. We made the arrangements to do this in a pretty short amount of time, and I really appreciate that you were able to do this and share with all of our people.
Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so that brings me back to leave that on there for just a minute in case anybody's wanting to capture that and have that now so that you can write that down again. You'll have access to the PowerPoint as well as to their PowerPoint so that you'll be able to gather more information. But I wanted to be sure that if somebody's needing to reach out soon, that they have that at hand. All right, so I'm going to move into sharing what some updates that are coming out of TEA. This is one I shared before. It's just a quick reminder. There was an extension for the submission for your reimbursements, the IBC reimbursements that were due October 2nd. That was pushed back to November 2nd, so you still have time. More information can be found on their website. There's a link to it. There was updates to it came out of advanced academics. It didn't come directly from CTE originally. CTE did send out an email or with a newsletter in it at the end of last week that included it, but it originally pushed out to everybody through advanced academics. So I want to make sure, I know not everybody maybe followed that list. And so I wanted to have gotten that word out. I did ask for some clarification. So I had some, it was reached out to me and it said, if you are a district that does NCCER or are looking at it on the IBC reimbursement, it shows the NCCER price of that's listed on that. That's a cost for one module. And so if what you're doing is core, there's 9 modules. And so I verified with TEA, why is the cost only showing the cost of one module when you have to do all 9 modules and to certify? And they didn't seem to be aware of that. And they said it was not a problem at all to submit for what you actually paid in order to get the entire certification. So if you did all 9 modules, you just multiply the cost out of each individual module per student, total that up, and that will be the amount you put in for reimbursement, and that will be fine. So I want to make sure that people knew that because we had a couple of districts that were asking about that. Next, I want to make sure that everybody was aware that there was a Chapter 74 update. Chapter 74 put curriculum requirements that were specific to CTE. I did highlight down on the bottom one piece of it. So computer science, it has been in Chapter 74 for a while that you had to offer a computer science course in secondary. It didn't specify whether it had to be high school, it had to be secondary, so it could be middle or high school. But the goal was, this came through legislative action, and that they want students to be leaving their secondary education with some understanding of programming to help, because we know that's where one of the greatest shortages in skill is going to be in the years to come. The update is that they added courses specific that can be used to qualify for this. It can be fundamentals of computer science 1, or advanced placement AP computer science principles. And so this will take you as a link to the entire requirements. Highlighted down here, there were other things that are pieces of this. It talks about how many programs of study you must have. That was already in your Perkins 5 information. So some of these things are outside of CTE, but some of it was specific to CTE. And so if you are looking for where is that definition of what a completer is, that, you know, they place that, it's in this chapter 74. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Now, what the ruling is that you must offer it. We've been asked by some of our small rurals, well, what if I offer it and my kids don't register for it? As long as you are offering it to them and they had the opportunity to take it. If for some reason in a year a class didn't make, then you know that you're not required to run a class for one student, but you had to give them the opportunity for the class. And so that is kind of a specific detail that can make a difference for some of you. There's also been updates to the administrative code in Rule 75. And these were provisions for individuals who are members of special populations. Oops. Oh, don't tell me that link's not going to work. And so, oh, I see. What I want, I'm not sure why this is not linking into it. That is an error on my part. I'm sorry. I'll have the entire document linked into that. But what I want people to take note of when you look through this is how many times students with disabilities and CTE are referenced in each individual statement. This is a significant change in how we are looking at things, and I may have that document linked and be able to pull it another way. But you will definitely want to look at, here it is. As you go through this and kind of look at all of the information, that they are more and more heavily tying CTE and SPED together. And it will be a focus when they are doing both SPED visits, and every district in the state will be receiving a SPED visit on a rotating schedule. That it will be a focus when they're looking at dyslexia programs. It will be a focus when they look at CTE as part of MOA. And MOA, remember now, is two-sided. It is the Office of Civil Rights side, and it is CTE out of TEA, looking at your programs of study, your CLNA, your best practices, because they took CTE out of RDA. And in taking it out of RDA, there had to be a new way that it was being evaluated, and best practices were being shown and encouraged within districts. And so it is now part of the CLNA process that you do it yourself. It is embedded in the answers that you put into your Perkins 5 applications and how you're going to meet the needs of these programs. And then it also ties you to those other departments. It is also heavily referenced in the Perkins 5 rules and how you spend your money and expectations of what you do within your programs. One of the things that is kind of been a misnomer, I have some districts that choose not to take Perkins funds because their funds aren't a real large amount, and they thought that kept them from being tied to a lot of these requirements. And you are open to being expected to meet everything that's in Perkins 5, whether you use Perkins 5 funds or not. If your district uses any kind of federal funds, you use them any kind of Title I funds, you're using any kind of federal funds in your LEP programs, in your migrant programs, in any way, shape, or form. If you use a drop of federal funds, you're expected by the federal government to meet the expectations of what's laid out in Perkins. So it isn't just tied to your Perkins funds. It is, are you meeting these expectations in your program as a whole? And so it's something that if you've not looked at this when it released, I would recommend you take a few minutes and kind of read through and take a look at how much it's tying your programs to these. I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to put that out because it's coming up on November 10th. On August 13th, they released there are new uniform grants guidelines, UGG, and they will take effect next summer. And it incorporates into EDGAR, because EDGAR wasn't hard enough to meet. We now get to add more to it. And so it is something that you are going to want to be aware of. It'll affect your federal funds. So these are the people that are going to present. Michael Brustein is a lawyer. He used to work for the federal government. He is one of the people that helped write the original Perkins laws. He no longer works for the federal department. He just runs his own law firm, but the state of Texas uses him to help us interpret and provide guidance on things. And so he is probably as knowledgeable as anybody that I could have ever met on how this all plays out, because he was with it from the very beginning as a straight out of law school newbie at the start of Perkins 5, and has spent his entire career tied to this. And so he will be presenting along with some of his partner and Ryan Merritt. You do have to register. Registration is limited. I don't know how many places are still open, seats are still open for it, but there's a link to this to open. I am registered and I will attend, and I will do my best to provide updates if I come across anything in that training that I think is going to be a significant difference that we need to be aware of. But I would recommend it being an hour and a half of your time that would probably be well spent. CTE Innovative Course Application Committees. Last year, they put out a call in November and asked for people to be on committees to help write the curriculum. And they did that through December and into January. It was a really tight turnaround time. They started this process a little bit earlier this year, but these are the courses that they are trying to get written. And so they're asking for people to work on those. So the gentlemen that were on this morning, they're going to look, they're reaching out and going to be somebody that can help work on programmable logic controller too, because that's a manufacturing one. But if you have staff or you have industry partners that would want to be a part of this, maybe you've got athletic trainers that would really want to be a part of writing the kinesiology course. So this is to create the TEKS. What they create, it's not the be all end all. It still has to go through the full SBOE process to get approved. And that process has to be started in January, which is why these have to be written now. So if you have anybody that is interested in being on one of these specific committees, you need to email Kevin Johnson, or they need to email Kevin Johnson and let him know specifically which course. They could be on more than one. So maybe they want to be on both physical therapy 1 and physical therapy 2. And do that. You can let your staff know. It looks great on a resume if you can say that you were on these committees and you were a part of doing this process, in addition to helping you to create quality programs. You notice that they're heavily health science. So when they created the programs of study, the most TBD courses, to be determined courses, resided in the health science program of study. There were a lot of gaps where we didn't have those courses to fill out, and they're working hard to try to get that expanded. And so if you have somebody that's interested in doing that, please make sure that they let Kevin Johnson know it at TEA so that they can join in. They'll be getting started pretty quickly on working on getting them into groups. They'll do this virtually. That's not going to be, they don't have to travel for any meetings. It'll all be done through virtual meetings. We have Celine's going to be presenting here in a few minutes, but I wanted to check and see because I think I maybe have some things. Allison asked if there is compensation for the teachers. To my knowledge, no, they did not offer any compensation for this. It was just for the benefit of all and for the bragging rights that you got to be a part of it. And TEA appreciates your participation. So I thought it would be a good time for us to take a few minutes break, and so that if you need to go, take a quick run to a restroom, grab another cup of coffee, let's take about a 4 or 5 minute break and start back up at 10 o'clock. All right, it's 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and reshare my screen. And all right, so I wanted to give some additional, we talked a little bit about this last time, more on the MOA OCR side of what a visit would look like. But I want to talk a little bit about more details that have been shared from the TEA CTE side, since it is now a two-sided visit and there are double expectations. And it's not that they're new expectations, they were expectations that are there, but it's now a monitoring piece that's going to be tied to it. And so I wanted to make sure that you had a little bit of information on what is it that TEA is looking at and expecting if you were to get a visit, or for you to be prepared for and be doing well on, so that you could perhaps keep from ever getting a visit, because your data looks so well that you wouldn't qualify for a visit. And so, overall, they're looking at different areas within your programs that may be needing support to implement a high quality program. And so that they have the different seven monitoring areas. They're going to be looking at legal requirements. They're going to be looking at the connections between your state plan, your CLNA, your Perkins data, and your local application. So you need to be making sure those things are well tied together. They're going to be looking at where you are on the spectrum of best practices and providing information for you on best practices for how things should be implemented. There will be a look at what possible documentation maybe needs to be provided in addition to what you're doing. And then there'll be an overview of the desktop review from the on-site visit. So all of the documents that you have to submit to the departments of program monitoring will also be accessible by Ryan Merritt's team, and they will be going through those in addition to special programs monitoring, going through all of your uploads. And so the administrative indicators that they're going to be looking at are retention and professional development. And the kind of evidence that they're looking for is that you provide guidance for your CTE teachers certification through state and local alternative routes. In other words, how are you getting your teachers into the programs? And then once you have them, are you offering an induction process for your CTE teachers? A lot of our teachers are coming in either under DOI or they're coming in through alternative ed programs, which is fine, but they don't have the pedagogy that somebody who's gone and got that 4-year degree from. So they're wanting to be looking at in your induction, when you bring on your new hires, how are you providing for those needs? How do you make sure that your teachers have what they need to be prepared as they are moving forward? And then they're going to look, do you have a retention policy for your teachers? What kind of things do you do so that you don't have to spend a lot of time finding new teachers and going through induction process, because your teachers stay with you? We always will have people that we lose through attrition. People are going to retire and things. You may be expanding your programs. We've got a lot of districts that are, kind of in our outlying areas that have been pretty stable with their numbers for maybe the last few decades, that all of a sudden are now going to have some pretty big booms in growth. I was talking with the people in Argyle ISD yesterday, and their newest projection is that between now and 2030, their student population is going to double in less than 10 years because of the number of new neighborhoods that are going on. That used to be kind of out in the country, and now as Fort Worth and Denton are merging into, one section of the Metroplex, Argyle was in between those and it's filling in. And there's a lot of you that are kind of in that boat that are going to be, needing to do some expansion. But you don't want to have to be hiring for expansion and replacing a lot of teachers, because your teachers are leaving your programs because they don't feel well supported, that they have the tools they need to be successful. Are you offering access to and resources for your professional development trainings in the following areas? For the CTE teachers, for the campus administrators that they work under, for CTE administrators, specialized instructional support personnel, and your paraprofessionals that are working with your students, and your career guidance and your academic counselors. And I will tell you that your counselors make or break your programs. A CTE program can only be as vibrant as the number of students that are in it, and the students will enter your programs by their counselors helping them to schedule. So you want to make sure that your counselors have a really good understanding of your programs. So are you providing professional development each year? Are you making sure that they know, what those programs entail and the benefits of it and the careers that are tied to it? So if a student sits in their office and says, when I leave school, what I really want to do, is be a machinist. What classes do you have that are tied to that? Does a counselor understand what a machinist does? Do they understand that a machinist maybe does a certain amount of programming now? And so, do they know your programs of study? Have you given them reference documents? And so you want to make sure that you are, working with these individuals so that they can strongly support your programs. They are also going to be looking to see if you have access to and resources for professional development, integrating the coherent and rigorous academic content standards. Are you tying your core and your CTE programs together? Are you making sure that strong ELA and strong math content is being enhanced in your CTE programs? We know in the world of CTE that our students are going to be more likely to persist and to make connections to understand things when we do the exact same skills embedded in CTE classes, because it's now tied to something they're interested in. They chose to be in that program. It's tied to something that they want to do when they leave school. So they're more likely to persist. They're going to struggle. They may struggle with that math skill, but if it means something to them to be able to do that math in order to get their building that they're going to create in construction technology done correctly, they might work a lot harder to get that done. So we know our teachers have that advantage, but we want to make sure that they have the skills to support that learning in their classrooms. And a great way to do that is to be partnering them with those core content teachers who also teach that, so that you can make sure that you're working together. And then your CTE education curricula. Is your curricula sound? Is it strong? Are you using high quality curricula? Are you just, getting something that is video based and setting the kids on it and expecting them to stay invested in a program? Or is your written work and that they're reading and engaging in tied to the hands-on practical application that's in your program? What does your curricula look like? They also are going to look to see, do you offer opportunities for academic and CTE teachers to jointly develop and implement curricula and pedagogical strategies? Do they work together? So, those PLCs that bring them together, or having some time devoted during your professional learning days to that, can be highly beneficial. They're going to be looking at student recruitment. And this is, recruitment and the counseling of the students. And so they'll be looking to see, do you have policies and procedures on active recruitment for students, including your special population? So that means, is that active recruitment being part of the ARD process? And I can tell you in MOA, that is heavily looked at. It is as much a SPED visit as it is a CTE visit when they come to your district. And they're looking to see, did all your students, whether they speak English or they don't, whether they are in a special ed program or are going to have an IEP, do they all have a good understanding of opportunities that exist? And do the adults that work with them have an understanding of that? And do the parents have an understanding of that? Are your recruiting materials provided to your populations that don't speak English in their home language so that they can actually, read through and understand it? They're going to be looking that your career exploration and your career development activities are well organized, that you have some sort of a systematic framework for the students. And you're doing this in middle grades before they start to enroll in your programs. These are actually House Bill 5 requirements. These are written in law that you have to be doing that. Every student is required to do a career interest inventory. It needs to be kept in their counselor files. It needs to be something that is visited when they are counseled from one year to the next on what endorsement that they are working towards graduation. And CTE programs of study are parts of those endorsements. And so you want to make sure that you have a good system for that it's not sporadic, that depending on which teacher they had in 8th grade, they had a good job, or depending on which counselor in the alpha schedule, they got that information. Do all of the students have a way that they're getting this? Do you have it put together in an organized fashion? You need to make sure you're providing information on the approved programs of study in your career pathways when you're doing those career exploration. You want students to know about work-based learning opportunities. And if you have an early college, high school, a P-TECH, a T-STEM, any of those programs, what kind of dual credit enrollment opportunities do they have that are tied to your CTE programs? And can they understand it in their native language where that is appropriate? Most of your districts have your websites are now set up so that you can change them to other languages. However, I will warn you that if any of the documents you put on there are a PDF document, when you change the language, it doesn't change what's on a PDF. It only changes what's on the actual website. So if you have a large Hispanic population, Spanish speaking population, you probably need to post two versions, an English and a Spanish version of your documents that are in PDF so that it is truly accessible. They're going to be looking at student performance, and they're going to be looking to see if you develop and implement strategies that address the indicators that are below 90% of the statewide targets. So the way you know that is by that data that we received for the first time last year. That was the data you used to complete the CLNA. You will be getting that data each year now in the spring. This coming year's data will be for your 2019 grads. And so, they're looking to see that they'll give you what the state numbers are, and then they'll give you what your numbers are, and they gave you what your numbers are that are not CTE students. So you're comparing your CTE students to your whole student body students, and you're comparing your CTE students against the state data. And so you're looking at those underperforming CTE learners in comparison to your non-CTE learners on those accountability measures. This is what we used to have to do in RDA. It's now part of a different process. Remember, you only have to complete the CLNA every other year, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be looking at your data and seeing where you are and doing an internal evaluation of that each year. The underperformance of your students in your special populations compared to the others and accountability. The underperformance in your different genders, in your different races, and the different ethnicities that are part of that data package that you receive. Remember, you will not be able to get that data unless you have access to the accountability section in TEAL. So for a lot of you, you had to go to somebody in your accountability department in your district and ask them to pull that. Once TEA releases that data, I'll make sure everybody knows that it's out, so that if you don't have access to that, you can be requesting it from somebody. They package the data and send it to you in two ways. They send it as a spreadsheet and they send it as a PDF. I recommend you get both and don't just have them provide you access to one or the other. The PDF is the easiest way to give a quick read, to go down and go through it. But then if you're needing to manipulate the data, you want that Excel version. But the Excel version is a little bit more complicated to look at in the way that it's organized. The PDF is very simple for you to look at and kind of gauge where you are. And it provides a lot of information that helps you answer your questions when you complete your Perkins 5 applications each year. And so they're also going to be looking to see, are you developing and implementing strategies that address those performers? And where that is reported is in the PS 3350 on your Perkins application. That was one of those pieces of the application. When you open up Perkins 5, it had lots of different pieces. You had your budget summaries, but you also had the different areas where you answered questions. Where you were looking at providing the information for how you were going to be addressing those low performers was in PS 3350. Size, scope, and quality is another area that they are looking at. And so they're going to be looking to see, do you have the required number of programs to study based on your high school enrollment numbers? And that's a chart. And so I don't know any of you that were not meeting the minimum numbers that were required on that. That wasn't a real struggle. Probably the place that's maybe would have the hardest time with that are going to be our early college, high schools, because they don't have a lot of room for extra courses in their programs, and maybe some of our new charter schools. But in general, people are offering those programs of study. And remember, you don't have to offer all 4 levels of courses in the program of study. You have to offer enough of it for a student to make it to completer. 3 or more courses for 4 or more credits within that individual program of study that's published, with at least one of the courses coming from a level 3 or level 4. So if one of your courses is a 2-credit course, then you can do just 3 classes and get to that level. They're going to be looking at the scope on your rigorous academic and tech skills, including your employability skills. They're looking at, are your students earning industry recognized credentials? That would be your IBCs. They're looking to see, do you offer work-based learning experiences, and are your students participating in those? And what connections do you have to secondary and post-secondary coursework? Do you have dual credit? Do you have relationships with your post-secondary partners that your students are a part of? When they're looking at quality, they're talking about sufficient opportunity to meet or exceed the performance targets under Perkins 5. So you want to be looking at, what are those expected performance targets in Perkins 5? They're well spelled out. And are you including your special populations into that when you're working with your students to get to that exceeds performance? It's not just your advanced level students. It should be your students that are from your SPED population and from your EL population. Are you making sure that they're doing well to exceed and perform on performance targets? So my question, that I'm sure some of you are thinking, I'm not getting an MOA visit this year, so why do I really need to be concerned with this? Well, the reality is these should be goals for running a high quality program, whether anybody's ever going to come visit your program or not. When you're going to build a high quality CTE program, these are the standards by which you're doing that under. You do need to know that there are 30 MOAs every year going forward. In the past, it was 25. Now there's going to be 30. In addition, they're going to be sending out warning letters to people that are kind of on the bubble and at close to having made that top 30. And I'm not sure the release date on when those will be going out. They said that they would be sending those this fall. And so every year there's going to be 30, and the people that receive them this year, they don't receive them again for the next 5 years. So you may not have received one this year, but you could very likely be receiving one in the future. And, and a good quote from Alexander Graham Bell: before anything else, preparation is the key to success. You really want to be making sure that you are preparing your students to have the best opportunities available to them. And that means preparing your programs and preparing your teachers to provide the very best for your students. And so, and I don't have any doubt with our people here in North Texas that that's what you're doing. I work with you guys all of the time. I know amazing things that you are doing for your students. I know opportunities that you do for your students, even though it doesn't get you a point on A through F. It doesn't count for anything. It's just what's best for students, and you do that anyways. But it's always good to have a continuous improvement model where you evaluate your stuff and look at what you're doing and say, could we do something a little bit better? How might we tweak this? This has changed. So now how do we change to address to that? And we've always had to do that in CTE because we're tied to the world of work, and things in the world of work keep changing. And so our programs have to adjust to meet that, as technology has changed, as, we talked about, the looking at the changes in manufacturing. It is not what manufacturing looked like, 20 years ago or even 10 years ago. And so if we're providing our students opportunities to be successful in the future, that means we need to make sure that we're current with what's really happening in industry in order to be able to do that. I have a question that came in the chat. Do they have a release time estimated for the CLNA data for the 2019 grads? No, I don't have a release time. I think it'll be similar to what it was last year. I would expect it probably in February, probably in the beginning of February is when it would be, but I don't have a set release date for when that information will release. The only people that will have to complete a CLNA this next spring would be if you qualified for Perkins funds, but you chose to not apply this year and you want to apply next year. You can't apply unless you have an approved CLNA. So you would have to go ahead and do one, even though it's a year that it's not required for, if you did not apply. Other than that, you won't have to do the CLNA, but there is an expectation that you're looking at, you're still meeting with your stakeholders, you're still meeting with your industry partners, and internally you're evaluating your programs. And so that data will provide you what you need to be able to do that. Do I have any questions on any of that before we move on? I'm looking at to make sure that Celine is here, and she is. So I want to make sure Celine I'm giving co-host rights. But I am going to go ahead and hand things over to Celine for a little bit, and she's going to talk to you about, some great opportunities for tracking your data. And this is something that I've had quite a few of you reach out to me about here just recently. So this was a great time for us to look at this. So I'm going to go ahead and unshare my screen and make sure that Celine has
Good
co-host.
morning.
Good morning. Can everybody hear Celine okay?
Lisa, do you have a time that you'd like me to stop?
If as long as we're done by about 10:50, we should be good.
Perfect.
So we got 30 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah. And we may not need that full time because it can get overwhelming. So let's see. Can we share? Not yet.
It's for some reason I'm clicking I need Nancy to give it to you because she got in first and she's the
Got it.
host. So is Nancy still on here? Let me ask Nancy to get you opened up.
I'll show Aaron as a co-host as well.
Yeah, he presented earlier. I've got multiple co-hosts, but only the host can give you co-host rights. So
Got
I
it.
need Nancy to give you.
Yeah. So while they're doing that, I'll just kind of tell you where we're at. I know most of you guys here on the call, Celine Brazel, Executive Director for College Career Readiness and Innovation at Northwest. Our district, I oversee CTE, AP, dual credit, anything CCMR. I oversee our adult and community ed as well, lots of different partnerships in lots of different places. And as a fast growth district, adding 1,300 kids every year, we wear a lot of hats. And so last year, when we were really trying to understand this CCMR outcome bonus, what it really meant, what it meant as far as, a fiscal opportunity for us, I needed to understand the data better. And to be able to do some forecasting was part of the driver for this. In our district, the tax compression rate in HB3 did not do us any favors as a fast growth district. And so we are, every dollar counts. And I didn't want to lose out on programming. I didn't want to lose out on opportunities. So I needed to make sure that I had good data to be able to put the right forecasting in place, ensure that I got the funding that I needed, and that we could definitely provide as many opportunities for our students as possible. And I've been working with a company called Forecast Analytics for about 5 years now, using a program called 5Sight and 5Map. And it allowed me to look at my district because we cover 234 square miles, and having that much variety from almost suburban, urban areas, all the way to very rural. And then a diverse set of languages, about 63 different languages spoken in our district. I needed to be able to see the physical district and understand where my students lived, not just in relation to the school that served them, but as the district. And we also have career academies that allow a student to transfer. So just some background there of why we were working with Forecast Analytics to begin with. It's a great program. They have a lot of neat stuff. Your CFOs may use Fivecast with them, which is a budgeting tool. So there's lots of things that are out there with Forecast Analytics, and they've been around the block for a really long time. They are truly committed to education, but they are business software. So last year, long story short, Last year, we met with on a total cold call after a 5-map training, and they said, "Hey, we've got this new product out called 5Lab, and it sounds to me like the problem you're trying to solve, we might be able to help." And so, thus began a partnership that would lead to us building a 5Lab dashboard. And so this is, I'm going to show you some things that are masked data. I'm going to show you some things that are demo data so that our student privacy is protected at all times here. But this data here, we've been building this dashboard now for about a year. And I have a call at noon today. I have a call every Thursday, and I work with about 30 principals right now. What started out to be a CCMR thing has now actually turned into an entire data dashboard for our district K-12. Every one of our principals now has their own dashboard. They can see things in real time. This loads from our SIS every night. And then external data that we bring in is specialty loads that we do on a monthly basis. So SAT, ACT, as we get those in once a month, we just go ahead and send those loads in to attach it to a student. This dashboard was, I had no idea how powerful it would become, but it is powered on the backside by Tableau. So if you use anything that's Tableau, a lot of that stuff is happening in the background here. And most of it is customized for what we wanted. And so we are adding data sets every day and filters. So I just kind of give you a little bit of, so right now, today, our enrollment is 25,502 active students. And our attendance rate is a cumulative attendance rate as of last night at 96.11%. One of the things that happened to us during COVID was we had to cold call almost 20,000 families for the 25,000 students we had to know if they had internet or if they had, what they needed essentially, or if they knew where our food deliveries were or whatever that might be. And so we changed our registration process as well to include learning environment preference and to include internet access. And so our students can update those at any time and we override that so it's in real time. So if I were to go right now and just hit this learning preference model here, why is it not letting me hit anything? And I say remote learning, I can now see my remote learners. We have 5,149 of them. And these are the grade bands in which they fall across. These are the campuses in which they're spread. Here is their racial makeup. Here is their special education status. Here, this is the actual number that do have an IEP. Here is their income status, LEP, male, female. And so I'm able to even drill down into, I'll use one of my big campuses. So here's one of our high schools. There it is across the grade band there. And then we can see the high school specifically so that we can talk about those additional wraparound services. So if it's a student of poverty, I can click on that as well. And you'll see this number right here that says 155. When I click on that number, I actually get a student list and it generates it automatically for me. And so having those options allows us not to have to sit down and write a Cognos report, not have to go into the backside of our SIS. Now my campus principal can feel empowered to be able to have that conversation. And you'll see like across here, learning environment preference is remote. The school is VR Eaton and low income is true. And so then you can see the racial makeup. You can see if we have language, male, female, etc. Now these students have chosen remote, but one of the questions we might ask is, do they have internet? And we have one that's saying they don't. So not too bad. Most of them we were able to distribute hotspots to. And so if a student, remained in that setting, then we could, assess it. Most of our elementary kiddos didn't, or they were putting down that internet, they had a cell phone. And so we had to go back and have that conversation about a cell phone, not necessarily providing the types of things that we needed for our students. But you'll see here, this 155 students, this is their aggregate attendance rate. And so this is where a principal can have a conversation And so you might ask yourself, well, how does this apply to what I'm doing with CTE? And so we do keep our CTE indicators. We kept the, if they were a 1 or a 2, we've kept that in here, but eventually we are in the process of writing the programs of study. And so you'll be able to see all of our programs of study pieces in here as well, and to be able to disaggregate it. So here are, of those 115, 107 of them are CTE students. And so now I can look at that list. I can see the racial makeup. I can see the grade makeup. And so these 11 here that are juniors and these 22 seniors, I may be looking at something with them to say, okay, you seniors that are CTE students, and you see how it just keeps drilling down and drilling down. This allows a campus to intentionally target those students that are most vulnerable. And we can pull a grade report on them easily. And so what might happen is I could run this report. Like I said, it'll give me a student list, and I'm going to see if it'll let me switch. Show you what a report might look like. I'm going to stop share for a second. It'll let me. And I'm going to share a different screen with you. And I've got some mass data here. So this is what would happen when I clicked on the individual student, that list of students. This is what I would get. So it's an individual student report. Here's grade level, subgroup. I would know their attendance rate. I would know, do they have any SAT scores, anything like that. Lisa, are y'all able to see that okay? And I can zoom in. I have a really big screen, so sometimes, there you go. And then you can actually see the course details for that student. And I could see all of it. I could see how well they're doing in each class, things of that nature. So let me change screens again. So one of the reasons, and I'll stop there for a second. If anybody has any questions, I guess I could have pulled the chat feature up. I don't know if anybody's using the chat feature. If anybody has any questions so far before I move into some of the other reporting that it does.
I'm monitoring. So far, there's nothing in the chat.
Okay, great. So we use this right now, and you might be going, gosh, this looks like it does a lot. It's probably really expensive, and it's not. That's the best part. It's affordable, it's manageable. I can pay it out of my allotments for either CCMR or CTE. It does what I needed to do as far as a dashboard goes. The best part is it really and truly allows me to dissect the things that I need to look at quickly. We have academies, we have students who are in specialized programming within those academies, and I can segregate them out and see that very quickly in a visual. It empowers the principal, and it empowers, a CTE director. In my personal opinion, I'm always having to ask for these reports. Now I can look at grades. I can see how well our students are performing in their class rank, GPA. I can see where we're at for all of their credentials. And so I was going to show you. So this is what the original intent was for the programming, which was the CCMR dashboard. So we used the decision tree we built for our college and career military readiness pieces for the outcomes bonus. And so we built all of the pieces. This is the flow of what's happening on the backside. So it's a yes, no, based on the student indicators that we have loaded into PEAMS. So we can actually map out that, did they get a 3 or more on a dual credit English or math? And so making sure that all of those things are checked. This is also a really great way to visually audit what's going into PEAMS. So I have found so many mistakes that were just small human errors that, somebody didn't check the right button, or they didn't ensure that this got a dual credit. It was moved into a pre-advanced placement instead of an AP placement weight when we changed our weighting in our handbook. Just these little places, these little nuances where you can find it. from a career ready standpoint. So we have, and a lot of this is demo data, so you won't see all of our actuals in here, but we might have in this career ready group of students that, we've got this group that they say they are career ready. Well, then I can filter out for income, grade, things of that nature, meet, not met. I can look at the actual student list. I can look at an industry-based credential, all of those pieces. I can look at
So Lynn, we've got
college.
a couple questions that have come
Okay,
in.
what you got?
So the first one is, I'm set to visit with EduThings soon to track certifications and reimbursements. Will the dashboard help with that, or do
Yep.
you track your certifications separately?
So I use, we have to upload all of our stuff into our SIS and attach it to PEAMS. So we've made a reporting system within the district for ourselves, where our teachers upload the student ID and the cert the student earned, but everything goes in here and then I'm able to check it. And so we just built our own way to report, our own dashboard. And so then our teachers go in, or our student can even go in, and then teacher can certify it that, yes, I passed my Microsoft Word cert today at Byron Nelson High School, and the teacher says confirmed, and they go on. And so once they load it in here, then it builds everything you need. So I can actually show you. So here is a group of industry credentials that we have. The 470 clinical medical assistant, we had 3 students that have earned theirs so far. And I can go in and I can say, all of the different pieces, and this is an Explorer, so I can build my own chart for my reporting, but I can go in and say how many of those were special ed, low income, how many of those students, were LEP, their race. So if you wanted to, so then literally it just pulls it right over. So how many of those students in that group, one was Hispanic, 2 are white? And then if you, yes.
So the next question was that you're kind of, so you're building these reports, but it was asked, when you say build, did you have to build all of this into 5Lab, or did 5Lab as a
5Lab
company
built
build
it
it
for
to suit
me.
you?
They built it for me, and they pull it from our SIS every night. So anything I load in the student information system is automatically updated every 24 hours.
And is that included in your base price, or do you have to pay to have them build additional things?
One price. My programming, like I said, was very inexpensive. It was a few dollars per kid for my first year to build the system. And then your maintenance is very inexpensive. Forecast Analytics, all of their programming is very inexpensive. I have not found it to be costly at all. The customization, I don't pay for extra customization. It's not one of those places where they sit there and just continually update. And one of the reasons that I didn't go with something like a EduThings, and I'm not against it or anything else like that. One of the reasons I didn't do that is because I didn't just need industry certs. I wanted to be able to look at a student who had an industry cert, and I also wanted to be able to see, do any of these students, when I scroll through here, like, do any of them have an AP indicator where they got a 3 or more? So here's 4 students that were male that got a 3 or more. They were Hispanic, but also got Microsoft Expert Excel. I wanted to be able to cross-reference and cross over those things. I also wanted to empower my administrators to own that data. It's really important for that. So here's another one, like student counts. When I'm figuring FTEs and I'm building my budgets based on enrollment, so I can load the student count and see, okay, here's one of my campuses. And on the backside, you'll find that I actually have all of this filtered down. But this is, student enrollment in this specific class or whatever. And I can even come over here and in real time, I can be checking also to make sure like credits are showing up when you're verifying your 6 weeks reports and doing PEAMS and things like that. So what I like to do is come in here and check my attendance indicator with those. So these classes right here, 99%, 96%. So I have an aggregate going on for my attendance rate, so I can figure my FTE so that I know what my allotment is. And then I can ensure, like on October 30th, when we upload to Snapshot, I've already run my reports. I found 2 anomalies. We fixed them so that we know the 30th feels comfortable. This has been the least cumbersome Snapshot reporting time for me ever. Usually I would be frantic just having to comb through stuff, and I didn't have to this year. We were just able to be so proactive in front of it. And then the best part for us is I can go through, and when I'm having the conversation about seat counts and what's going on, I can sit down with my CFO and say, hey, I'm going to need you to amend the budget November 1 for, summary of finance. This is what's actually showing up in my seat counts. And then I take it with my 6 weeks report where it has a compounded FTE and sit down with the CFO and show them on the summary of finance, where we need to amend up. Because typically that's what happens for us.
And as she mentions that, Slid and I have talked, and I have a lot of people that have reached out, and that's an area of needed professional learning for a lot of our new leadership in the region. And we are working on putting together a summary of finance training for those of you that are going to need that. So that is coming here in either December or January, as soon as we can get calendars aligned. But it was a good time to mention that, as she was just kind of sharing with you how that knowledge is power, especially when you're sitting down and trying to say, my CTE program brings this much money into the district, and therefore I need that money to be able to work with my students.
Well, and
also,
solvency on class ratios. So many times people are like 150 to 1 or whatever they're using for staffing models. You need to be able to defend that staffing model and to have that conversation. And in order to do that, it's your business to know your business. And so the more you know your data and the more you can speak to it and the more that you can show what's happening in your programs, the less likely you are to have to continually seek to get the same type of support.
And if you're looking at this as something to purchase with the district, I would highly recommend this come out of CCMR outcome bonus funds, because it meets all the criteria that are laid out for why you would use those funds.
That's where I'm paying it.
It shouldn't have to come just from your CTE funds, because this is way beyond CTE, but it will benefit you in CTE in an immeasurable way.
Absolutely. And you can build as many dashboards as you like. I have dashboards. I can kind of show you. We have equity dashboards. I have an audit dashboard for equity. If you're having conversations about disproportionality of students and service areas for students who might be marginalized within your system, whether it be economically or racially, here are places that you can have those conversations and then push in to have those conversations. Course grade distribution. I just ran percent failures in an Explorer, and I think I've got one that will not show everything. So I just ran a department grade distribution, and I was able to show a campus to say, okay, here's the English department, and here is, our students who are Black, who have no IEP. There were 15 of them, and at what proportionality did they receive an A, a B in that department? I can do it by course. I can do it by you name it. And so it's very quick, but it allows for a campus to have some really powerful conversations. SAT analysis, PSAT analysis, when you're looking at adding those conversations, because you're contributing so much more. And now that the CTE world, and part of what we're loading here is all the CLNA stuff as well. So we will look at longitudinal data for Algebra 1, English 1, English 2, and biology as it pertains to CTE cohorts. And so if you're going to have those conversations, it's really, really important. A great example, I had 35 students who were in remote learning who were not performing at quarter 1, and they were second time biology 1 takers, and they were CTE students. So now I could take those 35 students and have conversations at the 3 campuses, and it broke out to like 15 at 1, 12 and 7 or whatever it was with those, each one of those campuses, and say, okay, what are we doing for these students? Because it's gonna ding you on your accountability at some point. And so that allows you to have that more powerful conversation. And even with your teachers, if they're talking about PLCs, if they're talking about PLCs, if they're talking about opportunities, then you have a chance to use this data within a PLC or within a group and say, okay, here's your students. This is how they're performing. What's the inclusive rate of your students who receive special education services? What's happening there. Lisa talked about MOA. This is a great place for you to have the data on the backside about your MOA, why you adjust, why you make the differences. We've loaded home language. All of our opportunity guides come in 5 languages, but it also is in a static web page so that it can be translated into any language. But our PDFs are done in 5. We mail them home, and we can strategically pull all of that from here. So it's just made it a lot faster for us. And I told Lisa I was glad to share, the opportunity for us has been powerful, and it's allowed us a lot more freedom in controlling the narrative around our programming. And if we're ever going to dispel the myths about the power of CTE, this is a great place to do that. So I use On Data Suites. I did not get rid of On Data Suite. We've kept it. From a longitudinal historical data, it has really good stuff. And I actually load some things from On Data Suite there. On Data Suite is a little bit more cumbersome and a little clunky on certain areas. And it's really built into reporting, not visualization. And so from an ease of use, I find 5Labs much easier, much friendlier to use. I don't have to search as much on that, but even on my built reports and On Data Suites, they don't always tell the whole story if I'm in the middle of that real-time conversation. So if I want to say, hey, I pulled a report here in On Data Suites, but then I want to add one more thing and one more thing, sometimes it doesn't necessarily all talk to each other. And where with 5Lab, I can do it, but we did not use On Data Suites. It still has its place and its utilization. For our campus administrators, this is truly powerful. They feel more empowered to understand and own their data. One of the things that I'm working on is accountability with my campus administrators, where they don't believe that a CTE credential or experience exists for me to have to manage. It's about them wanting to be a partner. And so this allows them to have that. My contact for 5Labs, I can definitely set that up to you. Adam Sobolka, I can pull his email over. This is who I highly recommend. He's fantastic. Adam has been and people who know me, they know I'm kind of picky about who I work with. And one of the things I always say is, are you going to be a solution provider or are you going to be a vendor? And I ask that often. So I'm going to throw that in the chat to everyone.
And I am going to be reaching out to Adam actually today and seeing if he is available to visit with you guys in our November 17th CTE Coffee and Conversation. And so you can certainly reach out to him individually, but I also thought it would be beneficial to bring him in to talk. But I wanted you to have an idea of what it was before we even got to that point. And so
yeah, they're definitely solution providers. Their whole team is fantastic. It's a very, very awesome group to people to work with. Like I said, they're a solution provider, not a vendor, and they do not price gouge. That has been one of the things that I was really afraid I wasn't going to be able to afford it. I thought, gosh, there's no way this is going to deliver what it really says, and they have at every turn. So. It's 10:50, Lisa. I did good.
That's perfect. Does anybody
hope
have
it's-
any final questions? Because we have a little bit of time and it's something you may want to be talking about. I did not know about them in time to have them be one of our bigger groups. But for those that are you that are wanting to hear details on EduThings and then hear details on 5Lab and be able to compare them, EduThings is doing a live presentation on our November either 4th or 5th. I forget which day, but on our upcoming conference, our Pathways to Texas CCMR conference. And so they are going to be sharing, because I had so many of you that had been asking me about them. And so it would give you a chance to see them. And then, just 2 weeks later, be able to hear from 5Lab, hopefully. I think that they probably will be able to work that out on the schedule to present to a large group of people. So it'll give you a chance to kind of compare and contrast and get a little bit more detailed information on pricing for your own district, so that you can do that. But once Lynn and I kind of started talking about it was a different conversation, and this ended up becoming a piece of, and it became pretty apparent when I asked her about pricing and how reasonable it was for her, that it was something I wanted more people to be hearing about. And so it's not that I'm advocating any one company, that I don't do that. I'm just want to provide you information on things that are working out for our districts here in Region 11 to be kind of best practices, so that they can do that. Shalene's a Skyward district.
No, we're Power Schools.
Oh, you are Power Schools.
Yeah,
I
we're
thought you
Power
were
Schools.
Skyward.
That
Okay,
we're Power
so-
Schools. And that's the thing too. I definitely don't want to feel like I'm advocating for one or the other. We had always been keeping certain pieces for us and working, because I wear all the hats in the district for all of the CCMR, where some people don't have to. I needed a one-stop shop. I needed a place, and from a forecasting standpoint, adding 1,300 kids a year, I had to be able to build forecasting models, and this allows me to. So, like I said, I think everything has its place. And if you're looking at possibly working with maybe whoever oversees AP and dual credit and CCMR, if it's not you in the district, but you're a part of that conversation, this might be a great place to start that partnership and to start having people really see the role that you play. I will tell you, our special ed department is very, very grateful for this right now. They're loving what it's providing them for students at risk and our student services. There's lots of people that are realizing how much they can benefit from the data that they've never had.
So Lynn, did you build into the system for it to let you know whether the students were virtual or face-to-face?
Yes. So all of that, we built that in as part of our registration document. And then each time that the student changes at the 9 weeks, we allow it, at 9 weeks for a student to change. When they fill out their Laserfiche form, we update that in the SIS, and then it automatically loads in 24 hours. So yes, that internet, food, any of those indicators that, work with a student, we put them in there. We are also adding probably our RTI models in there. That's the question we've had right now. I've got some campus principals that are like, we want classroom numbers in there. We want the room number even. They want to know everything. And that's fine. Registrars, we're going to put withdrawal codes in there is the next one that we're working to build right now, is to be able to say, if the student withdrew, why did they withdraw? Because we lose a lot of students as well in our district. And so, lots of transient population, people moving in and out. So those types of things, if it's important to you, those are definitely some places that you could have some conversations.
And I will say, at the state level, we're seeing it. And being at the ESC, I get to see it because I get to sit in conversations with, I'm in the SPED meetings and the SPED director meetings, and I'm in, things with the EL programs and other title programs and migrant stuff. Federally and across the state, we are seeing more and more of a push, and it's not just in education, it's at the state level as a whole, that groups will be working more collectively, and we're trying to work smarter. And so you see that in the tri-agency partnerships. You're seeing that in how we're tying LMI to what we're doing in our programs. We want to, if you think about, we talked about Industry 4.0 earlier, in that we're working smarter within manufacturing. we're trying to do that when we're tying all of the work that's in our state or in our country together a little bit better. And that boils down to within your district, and your departments are tied together way more than they have ever been tied together before. When I started doing MOAs, I don't know that I ever thought I would have to understand as much about SPED law and rules and expectations as I needed to truly dive into some of that work and to know how all of the stuff worked with ELs. And now we've added new layers on the dyslexia things that have come out of new laws that were written in the summer of 2019. All of these things are tying our departments together more and more. So having something, whether it's this or it's another piece of software, or it's just coming to the table for your policies and procedures conversations and laying things out, your departments are going to be more tied together, whether you're wanted to plan for that or not. It is just organically going to happen by changes that are coming on accountability and changes that are coming in how grants work and how different pieces of funding work and how CCMR plays out for us at the secondary level. It is going to be part of how things look for us. So I think this is a great way to give you a place to look at that.
You bet. Our students that are most vulnerable within this situation, whether it be remote learning or not, having the data to quickly be able to address and assess has probably been the most powerful for us.
And what a great year to have that, because boy, our kids are more vulnerable this year than they have ever been before. Other than maybe the Houston coast after some of the hurricanes, I don't know that we've had a year where we've had more students that are in situations that make them excessively vulnerable.
Absolutely. Let me know if any of you need anything. I try to respond to email as fast as I can. It's a little crazy around here, but we're making it. So if you need anything, feel free to ask away. And like I said, Adam, he's a wealth of knowledge. So thanks for the time, Lisa. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you presenting.
You bet.
All right. So in a few minutes, we're going to move to a little bit of time in breakout groups. So one of the conversations that has come up, but I'm going to need Nancy to set up my breakout groups for me, because again, she's now my main host and I'm co-host because she logged in just before me. And so we're working on getting those set up, but I wanted to tell you what they're going to be and give you just a few minutes to take another quick restroom break before we move into your groups if you need to. But we're going to, let me share my screen. Okay, so when you get into your breakout groups, one of the things that I wanted to ask people to kind of be talking about, because it's been brought to me in similar questions about this from a couple of different areas, but talking through as people are looking ahead to next year, or as people are adding programs of studies or deciding how they're doing things, and as practicums and work-based learning is being pushed at a much higher level than ever from the state, that sometimes we run into struggles. Okay, well, if I have 300 kids that start in my principals classes, but in the end, the practicums are only going to be able to extend 15. How are we going about planning for having what we need as kids progress from one area to another and looking at that and organizing that? And so I want you to have a little bit of time to kind of talk through how you do that in your district. How do you plan for, as you're looking at trying to move your kids to completers? And we know we always have more kids that start in principals than end up making it all the way to completer status, because some students take principals classes to meet electives. Or, you may have students that start as a CTE student because you require for graduation professional communications in your district. So every student takes that. So they start down the road of CTE, but maybe they're actually a fine arts student that's not going to take a great level of CTE. But how are you planning for and looking at staffing and placements for those advanced programs and making sure that, you have the availability so that students can complete what they start and want to do? And then I have a link to the document, and it is the same document we used last time. I did add a column for the pathway planning, but I wanted people to be able to see what went in there previously and add to it. And so those best practices and or concerns. And so we can make this kind of an ongoing place where information goes in. Some of that is what drives what things that I bring in people to present or to talk about. Other things is sharing information with each other so that you have the best information from your peers, because I certainly don't have all the answers. You guys are the brain trust of this organization and how we all work together. And so I wanted to make sure that we can continue to have access with that. So I'm going to let you go ahead and take a 5-minute break at 11:05. When you come back in, please go ahead and join your breakout group. If you want to take a picture or a screenshot of what this says so that you kind of remember what you're talking about in your breakouts, and we'll spend some time getting to collaborate with your peers, and then we'll come back as a whole group. I've got a few more things I need to share with you about upcoming events and some updates.
Lisa, sorry, I had to run out. We had a situation, so I'm kind of lost where we are.
No worries, Leanne. Can you hear me?
I can.
We had, and they were kind of putting some things together, and now the breakout rooms have ended and everybody's coming back in a few seconds.
Okay, so are you going to tell us how to register for CTE for the 14th?
I'm not hearing.
Oh,
Are
CTE
you,
for
are
the
you
14th.
There we go. I wasn't hearing what you were saying. For some reason, you kind of blinked out for a few minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I was just wondering, I thought Celine might have said something about CTE on the 14th.
I'm going to give you some information about that here in just a minute.
Thank you.
She did not mention it. Sure. All right, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully it seems smooth to all of you, but my computer went completely haywire while you were gone, and it allowed you to be able to stay in your breakout rooms while I rebooted my system. But I am having some trouble getting all of my internet stuff popped back up. So I'm not looking at your shared document right now. I will look back through that where you added to that. But hopefully you had some time to have some good conversations. That's the part I miss about us being face-to-face, is having that collaboration time. Some of that stuff that's just so organic. But I wanted to give a few minutes if anybody wants to unmute and kind of share any great aha moments or things that came out when you were in your breakout groups that you want to share with the rest of us. All right, well, I'm not hearing anybody jump up and volunteer to speak up and share. So hopefully it was good conversations in your groups. I could hear in some of the groups before my system decided to go a little haywire. I guess that was my reminder that I need to reboot my laptop more frequently. I'm terrible about logging off and not rebooting. And I'm sure anybody on here that's an IT background person just cringed. So, all right, I am going to reshare my screen so that I can go ahead and this is where we left off and gave you guys some time to kind of talk through some things within your groups. But there are a few more things I wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of. If you are connecting your students to apprenticeships, whether they start with you or you have programs that lead to apprenticeships, if you are not aware, National Apprenticeship Week is November 8th to the 14th. And at the federal level, they have all kinds of things to help you market that and do stuff with them. And it's on the apprenticeship.gov website. And so I wanted to make sure that you had a connection to that so that you would be able to share that information. It's got some great marketing materials and so forth that you can use. And if you want your programs, if you are running apprenticeships, you can connect to them and let them know that, and you become part of their kind of like a national registry so that they have information about that. Coming up is our CTE Fall Forum. And so CTE is CTE of North Texas, and that's Regions 10 and Regions 11. And it is on November 13th. If you click on this image, when you open the PowerPoint, it has that'll take you directly to that registration that's on the bottom, or you can, if you want to type that long thing in yourself, feel free to do that. But I have it hot linked. And so there are going to be multiple different sessions offered that you can choose from. It's from 9 to 3:30. And do I have somebody from CTE that wants to unlock and share a little bit about what's coming up on that day? Maybe Mark or Allison.
Well, I think we have a lot of good presenters, and it's a virtual session or a conference that's run through CTE is partnering with us to run it for us this year. They'll be moderating the sessions for us, so it should run very, very smoothly. I believe, Lisa, aren't you presenting in the?
I am, and one of the things that was a bonus is, so, it was easiest for people to register with a PO. I was able to do that through CTAT. So CTAT had that system, so you can register for CTAT Fall Forum via CTAT, and if you need to do that. So in the past, a lot of times, you were cutting a check or doing things that was, a little bit different process, but they made that very easy this year. So that was a great add-on.
And we'll be keeping it open even after the 13th. I think it's open for, correct me if I'm wrong, Mark or Andrea, 90 days, I believe, afterwards. So you can go back and you can watch things and refer back to sessions and watch sessions that maybe you weren't able to be in live. So look forward to seeing you all there. We just completed our registration today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. I see something coming in the chat. Let me look at the chat.
Yes, it will be good for the counselors. We have Dr. Benavides from Region 11 that is doing a session for counselors, and there'll be other sessions that will benefit the counselors also.
The session I'm doing is MOA, and I can tell you MOA is heavily dealt with by your counselors. They are interviewed, they have to share their student files and all kinds of things. I know for sure that both Sandy's updates for counseling and MOA would directly tie to your counselors. PGPs and 4-year plans, that's definitely counseling. I'm just kind of looking at the sneak peek preview. So there's quite a bit on there that would be good for counselors. So awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. I started this last time, and I had a couple people let me know that they really liked that I'd put some tech tips in. So I'm going to try and kind of keep track of some things and add them. One that, that's timely is there's 3 free Halloween digital escape rooms that you can use through Ditch That Textbook. Matt is the author of Ditch That Textbook, and I was trying to work out having him present here in November with us. We just couldn't get through the RFP process until the next round. And so I am planning on bringing him in the spring because he is fabulous. But he has a lot of resources. If you've not used his stuff or you don't follow him on Twitter, I would really recommend it, and have your teachers follow him on Twitter and get a lot of great information. But I linked to a couple of things that came from him, the 12 must-have templates for teachers and students that are free and you can access, and that's a link to them, and the link to the Halloween digital escape rooms if somebody's wanting to use those this week. And then Google Keep, if it's something that you haven't used, if you are somebody that tries to keep a lot of notes that kind of keep you going, I am very much a list and a note person, and working my way through. Google Keep is a way to digitally keep up with that and kind of help keep you organized. And it can be used also as a Google Chrome app if you're wanting. And so there's when you click on Google Keep at the top, it'll take you to that and you can get some information. And if you want more details on how to run it, you Google it. So you want to make sure that you have access to all of that. Next is, this was a conversation when we talk about things regional, and you've heard me mention LMI quite a few times this year. And I want to make sure that everybody realizes that there's something that exists. And so we have Interlink in our area, and many of you are linked to them. But this was a document that Candy had put together and had shared at one of the Interlink meetings that I thought was really important for us as we are preparing our kids for work in our CTE programs. This is showing you from the counties, the percentage of your people that go elsewhere, where they're going to work. And so like Palo Pinto County is one of our outlying counties. 16% of their residents actually work in Parker County, and 9% actually work in Tarrant County. And, Wise County goes to Tarrant and Denton County. Not all Denton or Tarrant County people stay in Tarrant County. They leave and travel. We are very interconnected. And it was just a great image to kind of help us, see all of those connections and understand that our graduates are not necessarily just going to be staying within our local communities. And, we have some that will, but we have a lot that will go into programs nearby. And so, thinking about things as a regional status, it can be really important for us. I also have a link on the bottom to the Interlink North Texas website. If you have not engaged with Interlink and are interested in looking at working with Interlink, it can be a terrific resource. Speaking of resources, these are some resources through the Texas Workforce Commission. One of them on the bottom, the Jobs Y'all, is a statewide, and so that's from the statewide TWC, and you can find it located on the different local workforce sites. And it can be a terrific resource for you right now, especially for your teachers who are teaching practicums and work-based learning, and your students are not able to engage in work. Maybe they don't have a current work site. The site has been laid off. They're not being able to go to their job because of quarantining, something like that. It's a good place for you to go to get some things that are solid, legitimate, work-based learning tied resources for them to use. And then I have two that are specific to the two of our different workforce regions. So the career coach, that is out of from the Tarrant County. They just recently launched this career coach powered by EMSI. And it's research to local careers and training programs. And there's a video, if you click on that career coach video, that'll tell you about it. If you click on the top link, the career coach, it'll take you to the actual website. And iWork. So iWork is usually held twice a year, fall and spring. Fall, and they hold it in my building, and then spring, Region 10 will find a location that they hold it. But because of everything that's happening this year, they're not able to bring 1,200 students into my building. So this has gone virtual. It is an iWork virtual event, and you need to be in the workforce region. So you have to be in one of those counties that belong to North Central Texas workforce, the donut. There is limited capacity to this. So if you're interested in getting your students to participate, you want to get in and look at it. The flyer is posted here, but the link for more info will take you to their website to get you more information on getting your students registered. And so it'll be done as kind of an escape room version of looking at careers. And so it may be something that we get to continue in the future doing this, because it won't require the travel, and maybe do this in addition to our face-to-face iWork event. Want to let you know, TCEA is also available for resources. And, most of us are heavily engaged in CTAT, but TCEA last spring opened up for free membership, and they just for this week have released that you can join them for free again. And so I wanted to let you know that. I use their newsletters. I get a lot of information on different technical ideas and resources and materials that can be used from the TCEA newsletter. And so it's just another area to connect with people here in the state of Texas and have more tools at your fingertips. It will give you a free one-year membership, but you have to register for it by October 30th. So that's this Friday. So if you are interested in a free membership for TCEA, you'll want to go ahead and jump on that this week. I'm really excited that we have coming up our 2-day 2020 Pathways to Texas CCMR Summit. And that is a summit that's being put on by for counselors and CTE leadership. It is not teacher-based this year because we knew it was too hard for teachers to be out of their rooms. But we want leadership, whether it is specific CTE leadership, it can be your principals, and then definitely your counselors, your advanced academics, because community college consortium president, Christina Hubbard, is going to also have a whole strand of presentations that will be offered. It is the sessions run between 9 and 1. At 9 o'clock on both mornings, we have a keynote speaker. And then the sessions will run in after the keynote until 1 p.m. From 1 to 1:30 each day, there will be 2 live vendor presentations, one that's focused on SEL for the counseling side, one that's focused on CTE. And then on in between sessions, there is a virtual gallery that you can go to for presenters. So it's kind of a virtual look at a lot of the vendors that chose to jump in and join us. One of the things that we're happy about is we have a lot of giveaways. A lot of these vendors did provide gift cards. We've already had one of our CTE people from Lipan won the advanced awarded $50 gift card, but we have quite a few more of those that will be given out during keynote presentations and different things as kind of an added bonus. If you are in Region 11, it is free. If you are not, it's $25 for the 2-day event. So it's really reasonable, and we hope that you can jump on and join us. I wanted to leave some time, and so I'm going to stop share and see if open it up if there's things that you want to share with each other, have questions for the group, comments, concerns. And I know you had time to do that in your small groups, but I wanted, if there was something you wanted to share out with our larger group, for you to have an opportunity to do that. You guys are unusually quiet this morning. It's not usually that often that I don't have some of you that have things that you need to ask about or want to kind of get the group feedback from. So, all right, let me reshare my screen for the last couple of slides. Quick reminder, and this is kind of my service announcement for the day, that you set your clocks back this weekend. It is fall behind. So you get that extra hour sleep. So make sure you remember to do that on Halloween, and you get to have the extra hour on, unless you're like me and you have dogs that don't care what the clock says and are going to wake you up to be fed each morning. This is going to provide you resources, links to get to if you're going to register for those upcoming coffee and conversations, if you need to join our listserv, how you can follow me on Twitter or on Facebook. We have a lot of material on the CTE ESE Region 11 website. If you're wanting to engage with CTENT or CTAT, links to jump on there. So wanted to make sure you have the resources. I did have somebody say, you know, I am sharing this. I did make an update while we were presenting today, and I'm going to repost it, but it is posted on my website on the director meetings page, so that you can get access to the full PowerPoint. So you'll have the links to everything that's embedded in it. And let me see if I can quickly show you on the website where that is. So the CTE Directors and Leader Meetings, right here underneath today where you would have registered, it will get moved down a little bit to the other meetings, but it's going to have the PowerPoint is linked there, the flyer for the North Central Texas Workforce Solutions iWork event. I will also post there the PowerPoint from Aaron that he presented today, and so that you have information there. So I will update, and I'm going to go ahead and update the PowerPoint to where the page that I introduced Celine on. I'm going to put the contact information for 5Lab there so that you have it on that, and then I will repost that to the website shortly. All right, let's stop sharing. If anybody has anything else, I'm here to stay on for a little bit, but I want to value your time. And so have a wonderful day, stay warm, stay dry, and hopefully the fall weather will be a lot nicer in the next few days. And I look forward to seeing hopefully all of you next week at our 2-day event. Bye, Jacob.
Bye.